Welcome back to another episode of the State of the Program series on the Crossover U podcast. My name is Kanaye, and I'm here with Josh. And today we get to talk about the Michigan State Spartans and the state of that program right now on this very day going into this next season. Really good year for Michigan State, making it to the Elite Eight. Ran into Auburn, who I think talent-wise just outmatched Michigan State and Tom Izzo this past year. I think you still have to give a lot of credit to Tom Izzo for putting together the season he did in the Big Ten. They definitely lost a few important pieces this past season, but they've also added some guys and gotten a lot of important pieces back as well. We're going to talk all about that today in this episode. But before we get into that, if you can engage with our videos in any way you can, whether it's liking, subscribing, or just telling others about the Crossover U podcast, it goes a long way with continuing to build this channel and growing what we do here. So let's get right into it with what Michigan State has lost. Again, it's a lot of pieces that were really important to this past season. They're losing Jaden Akins, who was their leading scorer at just under 13 points per game. They're also losing their super talented freshman from this past year, Jace Richardson, who was just a lottery pick in the NBA draft, someone who's super efficient from the field. They are also losing Trey Holloman to transfer portal, along with Frankie Fiddler and Xavier Booker. Xavier Booker is definitely a guy I think you should have tried to get back, just considering I think he has a lot of untapped potential. But outside of that, the losses weren't too crazy for the rest of the guys they lost, guys who weren't really in big low roles. So overall, it does hurt losing your top two scorers from this past season, especially a guy like Trey Holloman, who I think probably could have came back. It definitely been the starting point guard for you. Overall, it definitely hurts losing what you did. I'm not really sure where I'd score this right now.
The original thinking I had was a 6, just because, once again, it's not atrociously bad. The problem, though, is a guy like Trey Holloman and Xavier Booker were both people you could have kept in the lineup for next year. And it's kind of rare to see Izzo lose players to the portal. But the portal is becoming such a big deal now that losing these guys becomes more realistic. So I kind of want to bump it down to a 5 because Holloman was a very likely starter. He was a starter last year. He could have been the anchor for this roster coming into the year, and he transfers to Miami, if I recall. And I think that's a far larger blow than that needs to be admitted. And I do think that the guard depth that Xavier Booker brought is a bit of a loss as well.
Yeah, I do like how you made that point. Trey Holloman's now at NC State. You got the Trey Donaldson, the other Michigan Trey. He's over in Miami
Yeah,
now.
no, that's
But but yeah, I definitely think this was something that both me and Josh were super shocked by. I remember when the announcement came out that he was entering the portal. Either Josh had sent it to me or I had sent it to Josh, and we were both shocked because that was a guy that we thought was definitely going to be running it back in East Lansing this next season. And again, I'm still shocked to this day that Trey Holloman is not going to be Michigan Spartan this next season. That's definitely a guy you should have gotten back, along with Xavier Booker. But overall, I'm not against having the losses out of 5 here for that reason.
true. And at the end of the day, let's put it real. You lost 3 of your main guys. If you're losing 3
Right.
starters, I don't care what program you're in, that's kind of a big loss.
Right. Yeah, most definitely. And to get into the ads, I think by far what is most important to talk about is what Michigan State is getting back. They're getting back Coen, Carr, Jackson Kohler, Jeremy Fears Jr., along with Carson Cooper. Those guys were all in fairly large roles this past season. Coen Carr, we already know how dynamic he is in transition, what an insane athlete he is. I mean, every single week it seems you see an offseason clip of Coen Carr breaking a backboard in an open gym run or doing some crazy dunk in practice that no one's really ever seen. And you see every week during the season, there's a new Coen Carr highlight dunk that gets put out on Instagram. And Jackson Kohler, I'm really high on. I think he has a chance to make a huge leap this year, maybe even be their best player. If he can be the version of himself that he was in that game against Illinois, then Michigan State's going to be really good. Jeremy Fears Jr., I understand he's got the riddled injury past. He doesn't really have the same burst he used to, but if he could be somewhat close to what his younger bro was at Oklahoma, then I think that's going to be super beneficial for Tom Izzo. Do I think he's going to be that? Probably not, but I definitely think Jeremy Fears, now in what is, I believe, is going to his third season of college basketball, I have a lot of hope that he can definitely kind of get back on the right track there. And Carson Cooper, I think, will be in a little bit of a larger role coming off the bench. But overall, I think it's great to bring back the guys that you brought back.
Yeah, I can see the upside in this, and I'm a big Coen Carr guy. I really see his upside as being a top 5 player in the Big Ten, if not even a first team All Big Ten at the end of the season. He will be the Izzo man for this team. I think he probably is the main ball handler too. And the athleticism will get him into a lottery conversation, or he is in one for next year's draft. I think there's going to be a lot of buzz around him going into the season and into conference play itself. I do love what Izzo kept. Jackson Kohler's been with the program for quite a while now. He will be the full-time starting center. I think the depth at the 5 role is a little bit low, but Kohler is one of the better centers in the league or in the conference, so I can't be that annoyed. And yeah, I agree with what you were saying with Fierce. I think he's definitely on the come up, but I don't know what his ceiling is. I don't think it's a crazy high one though. But if he is the starting point guard, he probably is not in a bad spot. Additionally, they had some pretty interesting transfers. Obviously, we know Izzo's not crazy with the transfer portal. This is the first time he's really brought in
Right.
multiple guys. Last year, he just brought in Frankie Fiddler, who kind of fizzled out towards the middle of the season. But he brought in Trey Ford, who averaged about 14 and a half a game at Sanford. That buckyball Sanford, too. Caleb Glenn, who averaged 12 and a half at Florida Atlantic. And then Divine Ugochukwu, who averaged 5 at Miami. So there is Power 5 experience. And then the freshman side, there are 2 top 100 prospects, that being Cam Ward, who is well talked about right now, and Jordan Scott. We don't really know how he's going to factor into the lineup. That said, this can be a classic Izzo 7 or 8 man lineup that's going forward. That said, like coming together on the edge, it's not a crazy roster. I'm not like super impressed by it, but it's also Michigan State, so I'm not super annoyed as well.
Yeah, I think it's important to note just Izzo hasn't typically always been a super go to my bench type of coach. I think he's probably going to have, like you said, a 7 at most 8 man rotation this year. But from what I've heard in terms of how good Trey Fort has been since arriving to Michigan State for offseason practice, I've heard amazing things about Trey Fort. I've also heard really great things about Cam Ward as well. I'm really excited to see Trey Fort in action. I think that the huge scoring upside is there. Of course, he didn't average crazy score numbers at Samford, but I think he's going to fit in well in the Big Ten and what Tom Izzo wants to do offensively. I honestly think there's a world where he is their leading scorer this year. Not ruling out the chance for that to be Coen, Carr, or Jackson Kohler, neither. But I also think Cam Ward is going to play a vital role to this team, probably coming off the bench for them. But I do think the talent is most definitely there with that in that freshman class. But overall, I do think that the ads are pretty solid, and I would go with probably like around a 6 here, I think.
Yeah, I think a 6 is just the best choice because at the end of the day, thank goodness Izzo didn't lose a guy like Kohler or Fears or Carr to the portal. Those are guys that definitely could have left. But at the same time, the transfer hall, the freshman hall, isn't exactly too special to talk about, but I'm not really into it.
Yeah, and before we get into how we feel regarding Tom Izzo, let's talk about who we think the projected start lineup is going to be. Me and Josh have put together a starting 5 of Jeremy Fears, Trey Fote, for Coen Carr, Carson Cooper, who, by the way, my mistake, I said coming off the bench, I meant to say in a starting role earlier on, and then Jackson Kohler rounding it out the 5. And honestly, it is a really solid starting lineup. You have a lot of guys with a lot of experience. Trey Fort's going to be kind of the we'll see how he plays type of guy, where he's obviously jumping up a level now, playing in the Big Ten as opposed to Sanford at the mid-major level. But overall, I do think it is a fairly talented starting 5, and it should be able to win them some solid games in the Big Ten this year.
Yeah, like I said before, 7 or 8 man lineup, but the starting 5 is definitely one to be feared a little bit. I think the guard play, as always, a Michigan State thing, can work pretty well. My only question is how he shoot it. Last year, Michigan State was a horrible 3-point shooting team. It got to them early. They did make an Elite Eight with a squad that really wasn't known for its shooting, more for its defense. The team does feel very defensively minded. I just question if Coen Carr and Jeremy Fierce in particular can step up their game and become top level scorers and efficient scorers too, because you're going to need that with a shorter team overall in this squad.
Right, most definitely. You're going to have to be efficient when you don't have a high scoring, high level shooting upside, which once again, I really don't know that this Michigan State roster has. Last year, the best shooter was by far head over heels Jace Richardson. He's no longer with the program now. He's now in the NBA. I think the best shooter on this year's team will probably end up being Trey Fort, and they're going to need him to I think he's going to get good numbers. They're going to need him to be efficient in getting those numbers, I think, for Michigan State to be a true threat to go on a run in March. But overall, I do think the starting five is solid head to toe. But getting into coaching, Tom Izoo, I think you can never give Tom Izoo enough credit. I really think that I did not expect Michigan State whatsoever to be able to make an Elite Eight. I don't even know if I really believed in them to make a second weekend this past season. I do think I did kind of give him the benefit of the doubt just because Tom Izzo is obviously the coach there. But overall, I think the defensive mentality that he has year in and year out, they were one of the best defensive teams in the country this past year. I expect that to be the same this year. And on top of that, the way he just finds how to kind of fit guys into the right spots. You mentioned guys like Frankie Fiddler maybe didn't work out. He's able to replace guys in the lineup to put over Fiddler and figure rotations and lineups and things that'll work. Early on in the season, Michigan State wasn't great at getting out in transition, forcing turnovers. I know me and you talked about it. I think that we wanted to see Michigan State get out in transition more. That would benefit. That would allow a guy, I should say, like Coen Carr to benefit from that. Someone who can run up and down the court, throw down dunks in transition. And they were able to do that. Izzo was able to figure it out. They were able to force turnovers and run more often. And for that, I mean, again, he's one of the greatest to ever do it. I'm going coaching at a 9 here.
I'm also going coaching at 9. He is the greatest Big Ten coach in the modern era. There's no doubt about it. He still is a great coach. I get it. Chinks in the armor starting to, fall off. This might be one of, if not his final year coaching at his age, but he is aged like fine wine in the Big Ten. And last year was a masterpiece season. I know he himself doesn't admit it because he wants, a natty. He wants to go back to what he had in 1999. But an Elite Eight for a squad like he had last year is wonderful. Any program would love that. And I think Michigan State, as a fan base, loved it as well. And the promise is still there to win it all over again next year and however long he manages to stay. So a 9 is just, it's only right.
Yeah, and just to kind of piggyback off of that point there, this kind of transitions into us talking about where they stack up in the Big Ten. Off of recording, you mentioned to me that you take Tom Izzo off the coaching staff here at Michigan State, and this roster probably leads you to believe that they are a bottom 5 team in the Big Ten, perhaps, going into this year. Now, Tom Izzo is obviously on the coaching staff at Michigan State, and I think he kind of elevates this roster that he's put together, which honestly isn't the most eye-turning roster for being completely transparent here. But I just think their belief and trust that college basketball watchers have in Izzo to figure things out, even if the talent might not be there, it's definitely something that leads you to believe Michigan State will be towards the top of this conference as they normally are.
Yeah, listen, once again, it's just the power of Izzo. I do think in conference play, Michigan State is not what they were last year. The Big Ten has kind of upped to another level. It's a high-level Purdue. It's a high-level Illinois. It's a high-level Michigan. I think the rivalry between Michigan and Michigan State is still going to be very good, but I feel like Michigan has a far greater edge than they did last year. I think this is more of a, once again, middle-of-the-pack team, maybe like a 5th, 6th, 8th, 7th, whatever you want to put in that lineup type of squad. But there is a decent ceiling. They can possibly go back to where they were last year's third-best team in the Big Ten, in my opinion. I think maybe a 6 is fair for conference play.
Yeah, I think a 6 is fair. I do think they're going to be just ahead of the middle of the pack in the conference, but I don't think they're going to be able to match with the likes of a Purdue, for say, or maybe even a Michigan. Their in-state rival there. I think Illinois, honestly, it will definitely be better than Michigan State this upcoming season in conference play. But overall, they're not going to be struggling to make the tournament nor the Big Ten tournament by any means. Now, to get into the vibes, what do you think if you are a Spartans fan? How do you feel going into this year?
There's a lot of concern. We don't know what and where Izzo is going. This could be his last year. There's a big question mark on there. But it's Coen Carr. It's the Coen Carr year. Everyone wants to see this guy pop off in a way that we haven't seen yet. And like I said before, the questions of him being a lottery pick are going to remain a huge deal going into this year and through the rest of the season. I think if he can carry the team, he will. But the ceiling for the squad is not an Elite Eight. I'm going to be real with you. I think they can be sneaky in the Big. This could be like a first round exit.
Yeah, I definitely love the point about the Coen Carr lottery upside. I know you are the one who's driving the train for the Coen Carr bandwagon this year. I'm definitely I'm all for it. I'm on that bandwagon too. I'm a big believer in Coen Carr. I think he has a chance to unlock a lot more of his skill set that we haven't seen yet. I know he's been pretty much marketed and he's what he's shown in his tape. He is a freak athlete, and that's kind of his namesake. But I do think that there's a level of skill there. I'm not saying he could be Zion Williamson, but I think in terms of physical makeup, just the ability to bully people down low, I think he can do this year. I do think he has the ability to step out and hit the 3-point shot. Of course, that's the main concern going into every offseason with Coen Carr. Is he going to improve the consistency shooting from outside? I think he's more than capable of it in the clips I've seen. Although it kind of gives you the sort of Ben Simmons offseason shooting video kind of vibe, I do think Coen Carr has shot well from what I've seen in this offseason. But I'm definitely here for the lottery noise. I definitely think that he is worth a lottery pick. Quite frankly, he might have been worth a lottery pick this past year. But overall, I am quite high on, again, Trey Ford. I'm still a believer in Jeremy Fears, and I'm a big fan of Jackson Kohler. I think, if they can figure rotations out, if guys can make leaps, the Michigan State's going to be a good spot. You never want to doubt Izzo. At the same time, though, I don't, like you said, I don't know how high the ceiling is for this team. I don't know if a second weekend is in the realm of possibility this year. That being said, don't be surprised if Tom Izzo finds some way to sneak into that second weekend. Vibes here, I'm probably going to go, honestly, probably 6.
Yeah, I think six is just like the fairest thing to ask, and I think the biggest real thing to it is just that if this is Izzo's last year, it sucks. It sucks that he
Right.
cannot compete for a national championship. It sucks that he will likely end his career with just one ring, 25, now 26 years ago, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I think the Coen Carr opportunity really does give the extra boost. It probably brings it from a 5 to a 6, in my opinion. But I do wish that this Michigan State team could be better. There obviously is still time, and Michigan State always kind of overperforms. They're very, flip floppy. They're either really good coming to the season and then they're horrible for the rest of the season and get like an 8 seed in the tournament, or they're like last year where they were underrated and undervalued. Man, made the Elite Eights. I feel like we're on a middle track to last year, but it could also just end up being what we saw 2 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm definitely kind of in the same boat there. I think that pretty much wraps up all we have on Michigan State today. For the sake of Michigan State and Tom Izzo, if this is Tom Izzo's last year, I really do deep down hope that they have a very successful season in both the Big Ten and go on a deep run in March. Again, he's one of the best to ever do it in the sport history of the sport as a coach, and I hope we get a few more years out of him every year. Kind of, you hear the tide ticking away, and it's gonna be sad when he officially decides to hang it up. But again, hoping Michigan State has a big year. It's always college basketball is always good, better I should say, when Michigan State is good. But yeah, I'm excited to watch this team this year. Coen Carr, All American wash. You heard it here first at Crossover U. And yeah, that's going to take care of everything for today. And until next episode, we'll see you all next time.